So, you're caring for a diabetic dog, and you know that daily stress, that constant worry. Well, today we're going to walk through a really powerful framework called the Calm and Control Blueprint. What this is really is a clear, actionable plan to help you move from feeling anxious all the time to feeling confident and in control. Okay, let's get into it. Does this sound familiar? I mean, really familiar? You're doing everything by the book, you're giving the insulin right on time, and yet those blood sugar numbers just will not budge. It is so incredibly frustrating, and I want you to know you are definitely not alone in feeling this way. This whole explainer is designed to tackle that exact problem and show you there's a different way forward. All right, here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll dig into the hidden truth about why those numbers are so stubborn. Then, we're going to build a roadmap to get things stable. We'll get into the nitty-gritty of mastering the daily routine, look at some other factors you might not have thought of, and finally, we'll talk about the emotional side of all this, how to go from anxiety to true confidence. Okay, let's dive right into the most important and honestly the most misunderstood part of this entire puzzle. Why those numbers stay sky high and why just upping the insulin dose is often the exact wrong thing to do. Here it is. This is the key insight of the entire blueprint. We tend to think that insulin is just a simple key that unlocks the body's cells to let sugar in. But imagine if things like stress or inflammation or other hormones are basically gumming up the lock. Well, having more keys isn't going to help, right? The problem isn't the insulin itself, it's all the other stuff getting in the way. And that right there is a huge mental shift. So, what is all that other stuff? Well, as you can see, it can be a whole mix of things. You've got insulin resistance, where the cells just get stubborn. You've got stress, which, pumps out hormones that jack up blood sugar. There can be other hormonal issues, especially in unspayed females. Underlying diseases like Cushing's are a big one. And then there's this tricky thing called the Somogyi effect, where too much insulin actually causes a massive rebound. The point is, we have to play detective and look at these root causes. Okay, so if just adding more insulin isn't the answer, how in the world do we find the right dose? Well, that brings us to our roadmap for stability. This is all about using data, your dog's glucose curve, to make smart, safe adjustments instead of just guessing. So what does a good day even look like? Well, this chart shows us what we're aiming for. A good glucose curve isn't some perfect flat line. It actually has a nice, gentle rhythm. You see, the blood sugar goes up a bit after they eat, then the insulin kicks in and brings it down to its lowest point. That's called the nadir, before it slowly starts to climb again before the next meal. The shape of this curve tells you literally everything you need to know. And this right here, illustrates one of the biggest, most common traps. You see a super high number in the morning, and your gut reaction is more insulin. But if it's the Somogyi effect, that high number is actually a rebound from a dangerously low number overnight, which was caused by too much insulin. And the solution, crazy as it sounds, is to reduce the dose. Getting this right is an absolute game changer. No matter what you're doing, whether you're increasing the dose or decreasing it, the golden rule is always the same. Go slow. The blueprint is very clear on this, a maximum adjustment of just 10 to 15% at a time, and then you wait. You give your dog's body 3 to 5 days to adjust to that new dose before you even think about changing it again. That patience is what keeps you off that dangerous roller coaster of overcorrecting. All right, let's switch gears and get really practical. For so many people, a huge source of daily stress is the injection itself. So this next part is all about mastering that routine, turning what might be a moment of anxiety into a calm, confident, and, totally manageable procedure. The tenting technique is gonna be your best friend. You're just gently lifting a fold of their skin to create a little space for the injection. Here's a great little tip. If your dog has long hair, just dab a little bit of water on the fur first. It makes it so much easier to part the hair and see exactly where you're going. Following these simple steps calmly and every single time is how you build trust. Did you know that the needle you use can make a huge difference? Seriously, just using the right size can make your dog so much more comfortable, which in turn makes you more confident. For the little guys, an ultra-thin 31-gauge needle is way less noticeable, while for bigger dogs, a slightly sturdier needle might be easier for you to handle. Okay, here are 4 super simple but really powerful tips from the blueprint. First, let the insulin warm up for just a couple of minutes. Cold insulin stings, plain and simple. Second, Your own hesitation can actually cause more discomfort, so a quick, confident motion is best. Third, always rotate where you give the shot to prevent soreness. And maybe most important, create a good vibe around it. Reward your dog with praise or a tiny treat right after. So, we've talked about adjusting the insulin dose and getting the injection technique down. But what if you're doing all of that right and you're still struggling? Well, let's dig into some of the other major factors that can be secretly sabotaging all your hard work. A really big one is Cushing's disease, which you often see alongside diabetes. Basically, it makes the body produce way too much cortisol. That's a stress hormone, and that creates massive resistance to insulin. For some dogs, like a Maltese named Bella in our source material, getting a Cushing's diagnosis was the missing piece of the puzzle that finally let them get her blood sugar under control. Okay, this next one is a huge safety rule. It is absolutely non-negotiable. Insulin's job is to take the sugar from food out of the blood. So if you give insulin without the food, there's no sugar for it to work on. That can cause a dangerous drop in blood glucose called hypoglycemia. If your dog skips more than, say, a quarter of their meal, you've got to call your vet to talk about adjusting that dose. Now, for unspayed female dogs, there's another major factor to consider, a hormone called progesterone. After a heat cycle, their progesterone levels spike, and this hormone basically acts like a roadblock for insulin, actively blocking it from doing its job. This can make it feel impossible to get things regulated. For a lot of these dogs, spaying isn't just an elective surgery, it's a medically necessary treatment that can have a dramatic, stabilizing effect on their diabetes. We've covered a ton of the medical how-to, but honestly, the emotional toll of this journey is just as big a part of this, if not bigger. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about how we move from a state of constant nagging anxiety to one of real earned confidence. This quote from Sarah, man, it just gets right to the heart of it, doesn't it? So many of us feel this sense of personal failure or guilt with every single high number. The most important mindset shift you can make is to stop seeing those numbers as a grade on your performance and start seeing them as what they are, just data. They're just information to help you and your vet make the next right call. All right, let's just talk about the fears that keep you up at night. Let's tackle them head on. The fear that you're going to hurt your dog with the wrong dose? It's a real fear, but the truth is insulin has a pretty wide safety margin. And the fear that this diagnosis is basically a death sentence? It is simply not true. With the kind of smart management we're talking about, diabetic dogs can and do live long, happy, wonderful lives. So how do you create some order out of all this chaos? With a super simple tracking system. Just a little notebook or a log with the daily essentials. This 5-minute routine does two amazing things. First, it gives your vet invaluable data so they can see patterns. And second, it gives you a powerful sense of control. You have a record. You know what's going on. And really, this is what it all comes down to, isn't it? The goal here isn't a perfect flatline glucose curve every single day. That's not realistic. The goal is a good quality of life. The goal is managing a medical condition together. Your calm presence, your patience, and your love, that's the most important medicine you could possibly give. So there you have it. We've walked through the key insights and the practical strategies of the Calm and Control Blueprint. You now understand the hidden reasons for those stubborn high numbers, you've got a roadmap to stability, and you can see the path from anxiety to confidence. You have the tools. So the only question left is, are you ready to start building?